Perfect. It's 6 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order. We have a quorum. We've got a full house tonight. The first order of business is to accept minutes of the August 2nd regular meeting. Any discussion? Those in favor? Aye. Excellent. Next up is visitor comments and petitions. Is there anybody here to discuss something that's not on the agenda? Yes, Dick.
I'd like to be on the agenda. The issue is the municipal power, electric power.
Okay.
And I'm going to leave the material for our next meeting presumably because you're going to want to read it. And a legal description from the lawyer, law firm, about what they can do and the costs and so forth. I'm leaving that with you as well. I think I gave you a copy of that some month ago, I think, Trey.
Okay.
It's the same copy,
Oh, from the email?
right?
Okay. Great.
That's basically why I'm here, is just to leave the material so that we can you can read it and then probably question me on it, next meeting.
Okay.
The Energy Committee, basically has dodged the issue in some respects. They can't focus on policy issues of this magnitude, in my opinion.
Okay.
And this is a serious effort, and a very, cost saving effort.
Yeah.
And help the ferry and a lot of other things.
Well, it's definitely helpful to have all the materials in writing, and I think it makes a lot of sense to, for us to have a time to digest it and to have it go on the agenda in 2 weeks.
My hope is to be on the agenda for discussion.
Yeah.
That's why I left the material.
Perfect.
And I don't have to say it. That's why I'm here.
You're welcome to.
Thank you, Phil.
Dick, for clarification, are you here as a representative of the Energy Committee or are you taking this
No,
away?
I'm not
away
here
from
as a
them?
representative of the Energy Committee.
Okay.
I'm on the Energy Committee, but
Right.
I don't represent them.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions for me? All right, perfect. Well, thanks for bringing the materials, and we look forward to talking about them in more detail in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
What was the question? I didn't get.
No, I just said thank you for bringing the materials. We look forward to discussion in 2 weeks.
I can leave.
Right? You're welcome to stay for more fun.
Well, actually, you can't leave.
Okay, anybody else? All right, with that, we've got a ferry service update, and John King is here.
Here I am.
Okay.
After the last meeting, as I think you all know, I sent a note to Bill Pulver attempting to summarize what I thought were everybody's kind of preliminary thoughts. Just to, I wanted to kind of get ahead of the curve in case we got a tariff in the interim, which we have not. And, he wrote me a nice little note back and said, thank you very much, but was pretty non-committal about anything substantive, which is not unexpected. And then since then, we've got this little document, which is DOT's estimate of what the tariff rates would be if instead of just getting a 18% across the board bump, we put 100% of the necessary funds into the peak season rate, 75% into the peak season rate, or 60% in the peak season rate, with illustrations of what an impact that would have for most everybody. Most importantly here probably is how much it would cost to walk on the boat, peak season, off season, and how much it would cost to take a car on the boat or pick up or just a standard vehicle already. I'm sorry, I don't know if you guys were able to print it any better than I was, but you almost did.
I don't think I saw it.
I don't get it. Oh, really?
Or I might have printed it out.
I remember seeing a copy of it electronically, but I don't have it. I don't see.
Yeah, I forwarded it to, I think, Janet, and
I generally print out, oh
Al,
my God.
well, my apologies then, because, well, it's, get the copies.
But I do have in my packet your email, back to Bill Culver from,
Yeah,
August 8th.
well, I didn't bring my computer, so I apologize, but this came shortly thereafter, and I thought I had forwarded it. So I apologize if you guys haven't had a chance to see it. It's gonna be pretty straightforward once you get a chance to look at it. In the meantime, while we're waiting for copies, I have two other things I just wanted to mention, which are not tariff related. Which don't require any action on your part, but I just some consideration that maybe we can talk about both these things down the road. One is, in my humble opinion, we need to, thank you. We need to improve communications when it relates to the ferry. We've got no coherent communication framework right now. As is evident by what just happened yesterday and the day before. And this, I think, is a multifaceted thing that will require some work on our part, as well as a bit of improvement on the ferry services part, because the 511 system, I don't know if you guys got the text today, early this morning, saying that the first boat was gonna be going off to Rockland.
Yeah.
Which was absolutely inaccurate. So that needs improvement, but we need improvement too, because right now, I think the most effective communication avenue is Facebook, which is just awful. I mean, you can't rely on Facebook, and you get one or two substantive things that may or may not be right, and then everyone goes off on rants and raves and everything else. So maybe we could loop Fred in on this, and you know, not everything needs to be, you know, run out on constant contact or anything. You know, if the boat's going to be delayed, that's fine. But if the ramp blows up or something, that's pretty important. So I just like you guys to try to think about that a little bit, and I am too. And I have already talked, well, I haven't talked to him, but I did send a note out to Bill Geary this morning saying, what in the world is going on with the 511 system? I mean, why is that happening? And he's investigating that, quote unquote. So that was one thing. The other issue that I wanted to talk about was, have you guys read the article in the Maine Beacon, which is kind of our little local ProPublica operation?
And about
It's
their
about-
wages.
Yeah, there was an article that was published on the 14th. And you can just Google it. It's primarily an article about, well, they focused on Vinyl Haven and North Haven, but according to this article, the entire system's about to collapse because of wage issues, primarily relating to the captains, because the captains haven't gotten a recent bump. The deckhands have. It's nothing that I think the town has any control over, because the state's dealing with the union. You know, it's subject to collective bargaining agreements and all that stuff. And however, one of the threads of the article is basically the morale amongst the ferry crews, captains and crew, is not very high. And I was, you know, the role of a municipality in this situation is kind of limited, I think, really, but and again, this is just for thinking purposes. But might it not be a good idea to do kind of a thank you something for these folks? We're coming to the end of the pandemic, I hope, or some people say it's already over. But, you know, they really did kind of go the extra mile for the last couple of years. And that, of course, doesn't have anything to do with wages, but I mean, I was thinking like, I don't know, a potluck at the ICC, or maybe the sporting club, or it's kind of hard to schedule because we only have one crew on at once. And of course, they're working during the day, but something at night, maybe invite the others or a proclamation or just something that, gives them kind of a attaboy type of thing. It certainly wouldn't hurt. And, anyway, for what it's worth. So we can talk about that or just give it some thought, and I'm happy to come back and, or just talk one-on-one, and maybe some people will have better ideas than I.
I think that's a great idea. You're right about it being a little complex. How are we going to be able to make sure we thank all of them, not just a few that are staying over? But I like the idea a lot. Maybe we can put it on the agenda to brainstorm on it about the possibilities.
Yeah, some brainstorming would be great, but, and I don't think there's any rush. In fact, it'd probably be better to do it, in the September or October when things calm down a little bit. 'Cause there's so much going on right now, it's crazy. But, I don't see any downside, and frankly, I think the folks would really appreciate it, so.
Yeah. I mean, there's a crew that stays over 1 week and then another crew that stays over the next week.
Well, some of them live here, so I would do it the week that the relief crew is on, and the other ones that live here would be here.
So we could do it twice to make sure we get everybody. That's
Or
Why
we
not
could,
have to do it twice?
I think you might be able to tweak it so that, some of the crew members could probably stay with people that live on the island or crew members that live on the island or, if you were to do it right. Or they could stay at my house. I don't, it doesn't. Or whatever.
Out over there.
But anyway, food for thought. Okay, now that you have that, I can give you the
Can I
quick.
just hold on, Maggie has been,
Oh,
her hand's been sort of up and down. Do you have
sure.
something you want to contribute, Maggie?
Well, I mean, maybe the town could declare a Be Nice to Your Ferry Crew week and just leave it up to residents to inundate them with muffins and brownies and sweet thoughts and whatever they can think of.
That's not a bad idea either.
Yeah, it's great.
That would overlap the two crews being there.
Yeah, that's,
What day do they change?
Monday, I believe.
Mondays?
Right.
I mean, I don't want to overdo this, but maybe we should just put it on the agenda for next time to actually, I think we can come up with a decision.
sounds good.
Maybe just informally talk about it and come up
Yeah.
with kind
Yeah.
of different ideas.
Yep.
But, I know like the ICC does potlucks and things like that, and the tent's still up and it's a nice night, but they have the community hall as a backup too, which is, requires some work in terms of setup and breakdown and stuff like that, but I don't think it would be killer.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Okay. So on the tariff issue, I did write Bill, and you folks at least did get that. Bill was nice and, acknowledged it. When this was circulated, what you now have before you, John Emerson is the chair of the advisory board, circulated that to all the other islands. It was sent to, Bill sent it to me and John because the finance subcommittee asked for it. But John has sent it to all the other islands, and to the best of my knowledge, no one has yet responded in terms of what they think. I can tell you, sorry about it, it's so small, but, so currently, walk-ons, non-peak $8, peak 13. And, well, let's do vehicles. Vehicle currently, non-peak $22, peak $29.50. So if we go across the board, and you'll obviously assume that I think that they would round this out, but if it was applied across the board, the off-season vehicle rate would go to $26, and the peak season rate would basically go to 35. If you did 100% of the increase to the peak season, The vehicle rate off-season would stay the same at 22. But throwing all of that on to the peak season, you'd be paying $40 during the summer months. 75% would mean about a $2.50 bump on the off season to 24.41 or 24.50 or whatever they would make it. And 75% would make it 37.55 peak season against the current 29.50. And if you did 60%, off season would go up about to $26. So it would go up about $4 off season, and peak season would go up to about $36, which would be an increase of about $6.50. So that kind of just shows you where you are. And when I looked at this, I think you're trying to balance the least amount of hurt on the off season with kind of a maximum amount of hurt, but not too much hurt on the peak season rate. And it's very subjective. It's kind of like, where do you fall on this?
Do you have any ridership statistics
I
in
have
terms of what the impact would be financially if we applied any of these?
no, because you can't really predict. I mean, what you're trying to do, I mean, this whole concept is designed to maximize revenue when the demand is the highest. And in the context of trying to do that, that's the 4 months of the peak season.
Right.
And in the context of trying to do that, what you're trying to do is minimize demand destruction, which is what happened with Tariff 8, as the ridership fell off dramatically with Tariff 8, which again was across the board year round. But you need a crystal ball to do it because it's never been done. So, but frankly, when I looked at it, I thought, yeah, $36 in the summertime is kind of a hit. Excuse me, no, 37.55 is a hit. $36 is probably the least amount that you can deal with. I think $40, which is 100% going to the peak season, would be pretty extraordinary. And I think that you would probably experience demand destruction if you were sitting on a $40 ticket during those 4 months, that 4-month period. How much demand destruction? I don't know. I mean, one of the things we're asking for is consideration of a resident tariff as well. I know that they're not excited about that. If we would, the fact of the matter is, I think as a practical matter, if you had a $40 ticket during the summer months, I think a lot of the local residents would probably go not take the trip. But if you're talking 600 local residents versus whatever our population swells to during the summer months, and if it swells with people who really don't care if they're paying $40, maybe the demand destruction would not be as significant as you might otherwise expect. But who knows? Again, it's a crystal ball situation. Go ahead.
So I wasn't here when I just landed when Tariff 8 and Tariff 9 hit. And that was when everybody was using the Quicksilver and all of that through that summer months. Was there any noticeable decrease in the summer visitors during that time?
The correct period.
Yeah. And so, because that's the other thing is that with demand destruction going down, if now you do have summer families and visitors and stuff like that are coming out that are no longer making the trip out, how would that affect your residents on the island that depend on the summer families? And so I didn't know if you guys saw any big fluctuations with if they were still coming or if people were hard for work. I don't know.
I think the ridership was mostly affected during the off season.
Okay.
It did go down during the summer months, but I don't believe it went down that much. If you're coming here for a week and you're just going on and going off. That's one thing. You can probably absorb that and it won't have too much of an impact, but the big demand destruction, I think, went down during the off season.
John, if they, let's just say that we went to $40, but we had a resident discount. That would allow the people that come in the summer, the people that could afford it, to go ahead and do, stomach the $40.
Yeah.
But it would mean that there wouldn't be demand destruction because there would still be revenue coming in if you had a resident amount. It is a discount, maybe not a deep discount, but a discount.
Yeah, one thing I don't have the numbers for, and the reason we asked DOT to do this is because I don't actually have the revenue numbers month by month. And I think your observation is in fact correct. The only reason I have some hesitation is what is driving the revenue during the busy season. And I think your underlying presumption, which is that what's really driving it are the folks that are coming here for a week or two. And
And the big demand on work,
Yeah.
all the building and construction and demand for services, that the influx from the outside is summer people, et cetera, is, and the opportunity for these months to build. But if the people that aren't do any, the year-round people that want to have a resident discount, it could work very nicely. And this is done all over the place, so.
Right.
A sticker on the car or something like that.
Well, I don't think the sticker on the car will work because
Okay.
you can't bring the car into the ticket office, but we could, I think the town office could issue a resident pass. So just a resident certification. That could just be shown at the town office. It would have to be done. And I emphasize this again, they're inclined not to do this because of their perception that the system was being gamed when we had island departure tickets and they were getting bought and then sent all over the place to, people and stuff like that. Even though there was no prohibition against that.
Yeah, they made the mistake and they want to blame us for it.
I don't disagree with you. But nonetheless, there's a sour taste in
Oh,
their
yeah.
mouth about it. So, and I don't, whatever, but I would, we'd have to, I think, and I think I put this in the letter to Bill, that, we'd have to do something to, identify true island residents and make sure that they weren't, just sent to.
What about the other people in the car, the passengers?
Hey, they're either residents or they're not. If they got a card, if they're an island resident, then they get their $8 or $6 ticket, right?
Mm-hmm.
If they're not an island resident, then they pay a non-resident charge. Frankly, I think it'd be pretty simple. And, as Lauren says, it works for town beaches, it works for transfer stations, it works for all kinds of things. Although you can use car stickers for that stuff. But, I don't see why it couldn't be done. So,
I think other places that have this, either they're gaming the system and whatever park or place or municipality had set this up as saying, so what? Or the system works and they can't game it in some way. So a little research, maybe we could find out why it's done places other than Islesboro and how it's happened.
well, I can tell you, I'm pretty sure, because I did a survey of other ferry services throughout the country. I think the biggest disparity that I found, and I don't have the materials with me now, but I think the biggest disparity is the Massachusetts Steamship Authority, which is Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket. And I think there's a huge disparity between summer visitors and island residents. And they really discount island residents to allow them to get off the Rock on occasion.
Is that where Mark is?
Yes, that's where Mark
I'll have
is.
to ask him what the
Yeah.
feature.
And I can go back and look at that, but it is done, you know, and it's done, I think, with the recognition that you know, if you're an island resident, there's an income disparity too, or, you know, there's generally is, it's not always, but, you know, generally is an income disparity that's justified.
Have you looked at, how Casco Bay Lines does it? I lived on Peaks Island for a little while, and they had an option for a resident boarding pass. And you could buy that either monthly or yearly and get, unlimited trips for a set price per month or per year.
The last time I looked, I thought that they had a very friendly commuter pass.
They do as well, yes.
Yeah.
You have to use it within 2 weeks, I think, and it's 5 trips.
Well, and the other thing,
5 round trips.
if before the expiration of 2 weeks,
Yeah.
you still have 2 passes or whatever, you can go to the ticket office and get a refund.
I'm
which
not
is-
sure that works on the commuter tickets,
it-
but
it-
yeah.
It does, well, it does according to the website, at
Okay.
least the last time I
Yeah.
looked. And which was a very, very user-friendly.
Mhm.
I mean, a lot of people sell commuter tickets because they're hoping they won't get you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to use the commuter tickets all the time.
Right.
I could definitely use them with,
The other system, I'm not, I thought the boarding pass system, because of the volume, did you live on Peaks?
Mhm.
I thought the boarding pass system was primarily to ensure that you could get on the busy boats.
That's the priority boarding system.
Okay.
They have a priority boarding system now too, but.
Yeah, yeah.
They're not
you
run
could-
by the state either, are they?
No. And the other thing is they're doing, I just heard on the radio last week that they're doing a complete review of their,
Think about
But
it.
no, the boarding, the pass is different. It allows you unlimited trips and it's like a little ID card. And you can pay either monthly or yearly, and it's a big chunk of money up front, but it
it's,
saves you a lot in the run.
it's a little bit of apples and oranges because, you know, Peaks, the vehicular traffic on Peaks is like
So
just a
much.
small fraction
So much lower, yeah.
of their overall revenue. It's all walk-ons, so. I don't know what you do with
They have
that.
a great schedule. They run late at night.
They have
Oh, yeah.
they do run late at night. They have a very high vehicle, ticket charge
Yeah,
for
and,
most days.
and
And
they
they have
have
it
a goofy one too, like if you go on Wednesday.
Wednesday, it's
day.
cheap, yeah. Yeah.
It's like all you can eat there.
Buffet on the ferry.
But they've been trying to work out these kinks for years, and I don't know, it's worth looking into how they do it.
Well, they're doing a complete review of their ticketing system right now. So, because they're stuck in the, you know, the rising prices, blah, 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 you know, all that stuff. So I really apologize, because I was hoping I'd be here and you folks would have been spending hours reviewing this. And
I mean, my general impression is, I mean, I sort of agree with you in that I think at the 100% increase to peak season, I feel like my gut is that we would see demand destruction at that point. I feel less strongly about it at 75 or 60, and I don't really know where the right line is, but I do think that whatever increase happens, that a recognition of a more consumer-friendly system, I think would be probably well received, whether that is a better commuter, you know, a more user-friendly commuter service, or the senior citizen, or, you know, the island resident. You know, I think some kind of recognition of that, I imagine would be well received by the community, and recognizing that they're trying to do what they can to make it affordable.
Was there
Good.
anything, any other discussion about the reservations and increasing the cost in the reservations to help that hit?
Well, I mentioned it, but as we talked about it the last time, it's very, very tricky because we already have an arbitrary disparity between the islands. The other islands pay 12,
Yeah, they didn't change at all.
and we pay
Oh,
20.
maybe.
Which, and,
They
Yeah.
paid 14 and we're still paying 23.
you know, so. Yeah, and the problem with to the extent reservations are a revenue driver, we're probably the only island that drives the revenue. I mean, North Haven doesn't have enough trips a day to do it. Vinyl Haven, much to my surprise, I learned, has many, not many, but some trips where they don't have any reservations at all. But they've got this goofy system where you've got to go down and be at the ticket office early in the morning and be waiting in line, and so they don't need the reservations because they've already been up at 4 o'clock in the morning.
If you plan 30 days in advance, or wasn't it?
Well, that's North Haven. In North Haven, you know, you can make reservations 30 days in advance. So they're down there at 5 o'clock in the morning making reservations for the next month.
Right.
And
Who could
I-
plan ahead?
And because, well, they don't have what we have, which is 9 trips a day. You know, so if you don't get a reservation, you just go down early and you wait an hour, right? Big deal, or maybe 2, but whatever.
Or park your car at night and wait, get
Yeah.
down there in the morning.
But we have options, and we're the revenue driver, and so the concern I have really with that is, I mean, I had a reservation the other day because I had a medical appointment, so, you know, I was kind of like, and it was poorly timed. But that's probably the first reservation I've had in about 5 years. So, you know, I mean, frankly, if it went way up, I could, but I wouldn't want it to go way up because, well, if we're gonna suffer financially on the reservation side, we ought to be assured by DOT, which we have not been, that we will enjoy a commensurate reduction on the walk-ons and cars and everything else side. You know, if we're gonna go up here, well, let's go down here. And I think we'd end up doing, I think unfortunately, we probably end up doing what we're currently doing all across the board too, I might add, which is kind of, you know, underwriting the whole system to some extent.
Yeah, at some time, again, I'd like to revisit, not tonight, I don't want us to continue this discussion much longer, and certainly not the topic I'm gonna mention now, I don't wanna go there, so I'm just saying.
That's what I mean is-
But the elephant in the room is the unfunded retirement.
That's a huge,
And,
huge
you know,
element. in the room.
I mean, that goes beyond, that's something we're helping to fund, that the people driving on the mainland, going from one place to the other, are not contributing to. There's nobody else really contributing to that, and that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So having said
I
that,
agree with you.
let's revisit that in another
And I'd
time.
be,
Well, you brought up the point whether or not that's statewide or just the ferry system, right? The unfunded balance.
well, I think it gets dropped into the ferry system because the ferry system has a P and L with a line item, operating expense description. But I think one thing you gotta remember is the ferry system is one of the few state agencies that actually creates revenue. I mean, fishing game probably does in terms of, you know, hunting and fishing licenses and stuff like that. I suppose parks, you know, people pay money to go to the state parks. So maybe,
Toll booths.
but you know, maybe some of those state agencies have a line item for unfunded pension liability. But on the ferry system, either next year or the year after, it's gonna be $1 million a year. And, you know, I mean, that's 50% subsidized, but it's still $500,000.
So I'll say it again, we're paying for their mistakes. They didn't fund it when they should have.
Oh, well, absolutely, but the issue is, they made a lot of serious mistakes. But the issue really is, I mean, that's too bad that they did that. It's not specific to the state of Maine. It's a nationwide problem. I mean, almost every single state has this problem, you know, to one degree or another. We've got to I would say we're on maybe, we're about halfway down on the bad side. But at least they're doing something about it. But most of this is getting funded through the general fund. Because of their mistakes, we pay for it with our taxes, with our tax dollars. So we're almost paying for it twice,
Yeah, right.
you know,
Well, and I do think, I mean, it's worth in almost every correspondence that we have in our recommendations for this is to point out that
The elephant.
the elephant
Let's
in the
just
room
keep
that
nurturing the elephant
another,
every-
yeah,
well, I don't, listen, I bring it up about every other advisory board meeting. Every time the finance committee, finance subcommittee has a meeting, the three of us, which is myself, Gabe, Pendleton, and John Everson talk about it. And then I bring it up and everyone's eyes glaze over. But, you know, you just keep doing it. And, you know, well, here's one.
Has there ever been an article written on this? I mean, is there publicity is this something that's more broadly? So here I said, I'm not. Let's table this and come back to it.
Yeah, I think that's a wise idea, because the answer to that is no,
Yeah.
because it's not a big, we're only a little part of a very big problem.
Yeah.
But
But we're paying for it.
just to make you more agitated about it. The 18% represents $1.3 million of budget increase rise estimated for the next 4 years. So that's 18%. If you take $1 million of that out, you're only looking at $300,000. That's pretty significant. So think about that for a while. You can get even madder.
I honestly can't get much madder.
I know, I mean, with your communication, I'm sorry, you open your mouth and ask, but I mean, I wonder, is it something that, I mean, you and John could talk about offline and kind of come up with a recommendation for, you know, what is the right strategy to raise the awareness of this, to put a little bit more pressure on the Secretary Service to really think about how they include that above or below the line?
Well, happy to do that.
If you're looking at for the publication on it, with the article that came out from the Beacon talking about how abused basically these captains have been on a financial and monetary basis. This rolls right into it, because now you have all of these captains that are looking to retire, that are trying to, when their pensions aren't even funded yet.
Well, they're not funded, but they're guaranteed,
Right,
because they're all in beepers, so.
but it's a great segue
Yeah. no, it is.
into, this is how not only are the islands footing the bill for this on a very, what they refer to as the house of cards. That all it's gonna take is the wind and the breeze and the unfortunate retirements or passings of captains, and the ferry system stops.
Well.
Well,
I
then, so
think
does
the
their pension fund essentially.
The argument that would make a lot of sense, I think, was if you took, it was coming up very soon to be $1 million line item on the budget and got rid of it. You wouldn't have to put all that money, but you could put some of that money into wages.
Yep. Retainment of your captains, but the person from the Beacon might be an interesting source to reach out to
Yeah, I
for the
think
publicity article on
that's
it.
good. I'd have to spend more time with John to get the facts of it correct, but I think something like that'd be worth following up on.
Well, public awareness is probably a good idea, because the only other option I see is a lawsuit, which would cost a lot of money, and I can't get, John Emerson at North Haven gets it, and I think Bill Crossman at Vineland gets it, but everybody, I just can't get
Yeah.
unanimity of opinion on this.
It's overwhelming.
It's very overwhelming.
So just kind of next steps on the I mean, are we sort of in a holding pattern at this point?
Well, we don't have a proposal yet, so if I can send something to Bill Pulver. And let me just make this suggestion perhaps. I would say that my sense is that you folks are really interested in making sure, or attempting to make sure, that island residents, particularly senior island residents, are fairly dealt with the new tariff, which could be done by a resident pass, a senior citizen discount, and or a reasonable commuter pass. And maybe just say that's the primary concern, but to the extent that can be, those concerns can be alleviated by putting additional revenue into the peak season by maybe in the, somewhere between 60 or 75%. That is livable too, or something like that. I don't know, it may be premature to say that, but because again, you haven't had a lot of time to look at those numbers, but they are kind of pretty self-evident, you know. I can do what I did before and maybe try to draft something up. Send it to Janet and to you, Shay, and then.
Didn't you ask for a stay until the end of August?
Well, yeah, but what I got was kind of a marbles in the mouth response saying, don't worry, you'll have an opportunity to comment, but I wasn't being told what we'd have an opportunity to comment on, like the creation of a new tariff or the proposed new tariff. And I prefer it to be the former and not the latter, because once the stuff gets down in black and white, as we all know, having gone over to Belfast more times than we wanted to, it's really hard to get them off that.
Right.
And I don't think a formal vote or anything is necessary. Maybe the best way to proceed is, let me draft something up along the lines of what I just said. And if it works for you folks.
Do we want a senior? Or do we want, I'm thinking more resident and maybe commuter. That would take care, in my mind, of instead of a senior. I think that's,
I would keep senior in my hip pocket because you might not get resident. And if you don't get resident, at least senior's better than a stick in the eye.
It is, but I also think it's important for them to hear that we want to prioritize this being a place where year-round families can afford to live.
Right. Yeah.
yeah, that's really important to the survival of the island. I mean, otherwise, old folks like me are just gonna be sitting here by ourselves. But they're just
Well,
gonna.
we went through this in, what was it, 2018? We started
17 and 18. I think.
17 and 18, we took the whole system apart, put it back together, you and your brother, or your brother-in-law,
Brother-in-law.
excuse me,
Yeah,
put together a presentation for the DOT.
we did. And I'd also point out, Lauren, that when I sent that thing to Bill, I also asked for loosening up the medical thing, so you don't need, you know,
Yeah.
a proclamation from the Pope to get a special ticket.
Great.
Well, I'll draft something and then play with it. The only thing is, you know, the sword is swinging and I'm not sure quite when it's gonna knock my head off, so.
You're doing a good job of
Yeah.
bobbing and weaving so far.
Thank you.
And I also think, I mean, that communications issue too is that you raised earlier, I think is definitely worth some discussion in how we can collectively work together to improve communications, because you know, it was a very hard situation, and I think everyone, you know, the folks who were on the boats and, you know, were trying to communicate but didn't have much to communicate, you know, it was I think people were doing their best, but it felt like we could do better.
They could do better.
Right,
Yeah.
there's,
I feel
Well-
bad because the people that are working the lines that are having to face the people that are asking the questions don't have any of the information, or it's entirely separate information than what they actually have on the boat. And that it's not just evident of yesterday's incident or this morning's. When we got on the boat this morning, one of the ferry workers turned around and goes, oh, and by the way, we're not going to Rockland. We just found out we're not.
Great.
And I'm like, oh, cool, because I never thought I was going to Rockland, but they actually really did. And it was like, okay, you're messing with me, right?
Well, they,
And then it
they
was
sent out a
no,
notice at like 6 in the morning saying that,
Right.
you know, the boat was going to Rockland.
So I think the email said,
I think,
but the captain
I think
actually thought that
improvements
they
could
were.
be made
Yeah.
all the way around.
Yeah, it's a little different when the actual captain thinks that you are going to Rockland, and I'm like, well, I'm going south either way, so.
But I will say this, we've had this discussion with the advisory board too, about improving communications coming from the ferry service and DOT. It's a little bit hard because the ferry service, there's this mysterious dark room in DOT that is the 511 room. I've actually seen it.
It's dark.
And so that communication.
That's the trouble.
has,
Is it a dark room?
it's dark with lots of computers.
Is it the same as their dispatch center?
It's not a dispatch center, it's not like a state police dispatch center, but they monitor it. If you go on the basic 511 website and, you know, it's showing you all the little details of where the construction is and where the backups are and everything, and they've got all the cameras. They're watching everything, and it's pretty cool. And they told me too that, you know, one huge, you know, we all hate Lincolnville parking, but Vinyl Haven and North Haven hate Rockland parking even more than Lincolnville parking. One of the problems is that you go up to the thing and it says full, and you're looking over there and you're seeing 5 or 6 empty spots. And they live, so the guys in Augusta, this is hilarious, and they apparently can actually, if you push the button enough, or you push the call button or something, it will go to that room in Augusta, and they can push a button and the gate will go up and down. But anyway, we have had discussions about improving communication between the ferry service and DOT, and then the ferry service and the users, the towns, et cetera. It's gonna be hard, I think, because each island, kind of like the reservation system, each island has their own way of communicating. North Haven loves Facebook.
Oh,
I think it's wonderful, you know, and so I think everyone, including us, is gonna have to pull in that order to make this work. You know, I think we're gonna have to up our game a little too, and not just rely on people like screaming on Facebook.
Yeah. No, agreed. And I, you know, in the vein of, it's nice to hear what worked well. I mean, I do think it seemed like what seemed to be a major repair happened very much quicker than they thought they would. So
I
that
think they deserve all
that was
kinds of
nice.
kudos for that.
Yeah.
I mean, we were lucky, I think, because I still don't know what happened, but I think it was mechanical. It was not what happened at the Swans last year, which was electrical issues with the ramp. And Bill Geary, because I emailed him that morning and said, can you provide some idea of what is going on over there? And he did say, we're on it, and we've got the parts.
that was the big thing I heard, yeah, because
Yeah, because they had the parts, and it was amazing. I mean, they got Proc up there with this big crane, and I pulled in yesterday at 2 o'clock, and the crane was heading south.
Yeah.
So kudos to them. I think we
Yeah.
deserve, you know,
Yeah.
in past years, that could have taken a week.
Yeah.
We could send a note of thanks. That would not be a bad
I
idea.
think that would be a great idea.
Yeah.
And send it to Bill Geary, because I think he's in large measure responsible for that.
Yeah,
I mean, I sent him a note saying we really appreciated the quick, you know, response. But it would have a lot more weight word to.
Great.
Sorry to keep this so long. I'll work on something and try to get it out tomorrow,
Perfect.
hopefully.
I want to hear how Shay's boat ride, you took a ride to Rockland? Did you?
I did, yes.
I don't know if I could have done it. Lovely day.
It was a lovely day,
Sightseeing,
yeah, I got to
right?
see my kids hauling their traps, took some pictures of their boats on the way by. It was great. Yeah, I hoped I would, I was waiting patiently in line with the hope that their boat would go in front of Rockland, because I had a truckload full of stuff that needed to go to market, so.
Well, I think a note,
Yeah.
from the town would be great. Certainly couldn't hurt. And,
I'm
and so talk about something for the cruise would be great. And so, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Shay, will I be on
That's
the agenda
Romana.
for the next
Yes,
election?
yep. All right, sea level rise update, we continue small group discussions, and hopefully we'll have a draft RFQ out in the next few weeks to, engage an engineering firm.
And municipal building, project, we're closing in on it. I'll have a lot more at our next meeting, but we'll leave it at that.
Any other questions about updates?
Nothing from the planning board yet? The planning board?
This coming Monday, there should be the approvals. Yeah, is that what you mean?
Darlene Dorsey's that new plan for Up Island.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I think, or.
Yeah.
New plan.
You mentioned housing with the construction workers. What extent was that being provided? Like, is there a large number of them that are staying and? Like, how much money are we spending on housing? For these construction folks, you know, do we have any idea, is it donated?
Oh, you're talking about,
The building.
each one of the H.E. Callahan, which is the construction overseer, that's the, contract manager, is working with, the three possible housing situations. And we have nothing, municipal building project has nothing to do with it per se, they're contracting directly with those people, so Eileen Boardman's house is gonna be one of the, they're working out a lease agreement with them. It will be a cost to us, but think of the savings, because workers are not going back and forth, instead of time spending working on a building, they're spending time traveling, and we're paying for the travel, as well as pay for housing. I mean, you know, 6 of one, half dozen the other, so I think we're getting a lot more bang for our buck by having them housed on the island Monday through Friday. So is that what you mean?
Yeah, I just didn't realize that was something that we were offering them, and just had someone who was struggled to find housing in the past. I was surprised that it was able to be so quickly like, ooh, we've got it for off island construction workers ready to rock and roll.
It's a good time of year.
Right.
too,
Yeah,
you know, when
it's
summer people are gone.
yeah, it's, I mean, it's the same housing that anyone could have gotten. It just, you know, I asked around and this is, Donnie Shan has apartments that in the winter, they do find some housing for people, but it's basically.
They've helped various things, but
Yeah.
yeah, they rent them year round.
Yeah.
But they're empty.
And the construction company pays for it, right?
Right. Well, we're paying a construction company, so it does come out of our costs,
Our budget.
but so does paying for workers that are, you know, charging us for their travel to the Islesboro ferry, and then their travel over, and they're working a shorter day. If you get my.
And who knows,
drift.
right, staying on the mainland, hotels or.
So,
Is that listed under one of your line items for the breakdown of it? Is that what HB Callahan's gonna give you? Is like how much
yeah.
housing and everything else is gonna,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Do they have an idea when, and when are those ones coming out?
When are we gonna get a line item budget?
Yeah.
I think they're talking about getting guaranteed maximum price September 28th or something like that.
Very cool.
23rd.
That's
Things are
specific
moving,
rumblings.
things are moving very quickly, but there's a lot of aspects to the financing of this that haven't been nailed down. The targets are really hard to pin down because, I mean, for instance, if you want to buy for a pump that they have to, provide as part of their system. The pump that they mentioned is 6 months, out. You have to buy it now and you'll get it in 6 months.
Right.
So there's a long lead time for a lot of these things. And the other thing is that they're trying to bring down the prices. So they're trying to find ways to, this is, if we don't get this medium expensive cabinet and we go with a lower cabinet, can we do that and save dollars? So there's a lot of work being done right now to tweak the system, and save as much money as possible. It's complicated.
Any other questions? All right, upcoming meetings of subcommittee reports, August 21st, planning board meeting.
Yes.
Yes,
There's just a confirmation.
yes.
I usually just write the wrong number.
Right.
Good thing this planning board secretary's here.
All right, town manager report.
All right, I have given you, which I just received today, minutes from the Economic Sustainability Corporation meeting from June 13th. Minutes from the Lighthouse Restoration Committee meeting from July 13th. You have the July Bar Harbor Capital Reserve sub-accounting statement. A letter from Angus King's office, Senator Angus King, regarding our request for congressionally directed spending. Still saying, it's not a done deal, it's not, but there is pushing on, to keep letting us know, I guess. A notice from Maine Municipal Association, we received a dividend check of $2,505 because of our good performance and loss prevention programs. And I had sent you or given you that email from John King to William Culver regarding the tariff. I was gonna say Carol Nichter will not be here again tonight. So I'm gonna find somebody. I'm trying to rope somebody to go up to give her this. I don't know if one of the selectmen want to give it to her, but I will find somebody. It would mean more coming with someone else than me, driving up there maybe, and some flowers, but she just doesn't want to be publicly humiliated.
For her many years of service, we don't need to
I
end it
know.
with an uncomfortable experience. That's not the intention.
I don't know her, but I would absolutely volunteer to.
Well, anyway, yeah, we can talk about that. So I had a note here to tell you about the ferry ramp broken, but I guess everybody knows about that and it's back. Then also I've given you, from Gartley and Dorsey, they, in part of their application, they have to send out to abutters or owners, about the notification and request for comment on the permit that they're applying for, and then a picture of the draft of the site plan. And this is dated July 14th.
This is the final one.
Finally, so I see many of these, so I gotta make sure I get rid of all the other ones. Part of their notification process. And then what has been keeping me really busy, or my head busy, I've given you. You all might know, maybe you've heard about East Shore Drive falling into the ocean. This started last week. I have an August 9th picture. That was Wednesday, but I think it might have started cracking before. So we've been taking a picture of it every day. So this was today's picture. I sent Dave Dyer down there. And I got in touch with immediately Will Gartley of Gartley and Dorsey. And he was quite familiar with that area because the people who own property, well, who own this property, actually, the property across the street, Kasner's, were planning to build something up there. So they had done a topographical survey of it a year ago. So he was quite aware of it. And like the bank's 17 feet high, it goes on about 150 feet. So he's working on this, trying to figure out a plan. And he's also searching for who might do this kind of repair. What kind of repair? I mean, it's probably, you can't just drive up there and put dirt, which people have been telling me. Why doesn't Peter go there? Well, his truck would end up,
In the
overboard.
ocean.
Yeah. So it's possibilities, but I think once I learn as much as I can, we need to perhaps have a discussion about how to handle this. Maybe the road should be pushed over to the left more, and maybe because right now, so it's barricaded off, and the other end, which is beyond Casner's, there's a couple of driveways there. One is Scott Reed's and another lady, Hart. Yeah, right on the back up to the cemetery, which we've asked to have the gate opened at the end of East Shore Drive. And the Boardmans are allowing traffic through on their private road, which we're gonna maintain because they've already there were a lot of potholes. So I heard about that and we repaired those and I said, when we're completely done, maybe we'll grade the road or do something to get it back to its condition, but I just don't know how long it's gonna go on. I have no idea. And someone came to me and said, well, why aren't they going through the cemetery, Maple Grove? I said, well, we don't own, that's not a town cemetery. And I know in the past, I had mentioned to somebody from Maple Grove about the possibility of going, so I think the fire department had a key to the gate in the past years in case there was emergency that they had to get, and they couldn't get another one. But, I'm willing to talk with them again and see. I know they wouldn't be happy. Because it's not it's not like a straight shot. You gotta go around the center there. So
Is the gate open?
the one at East Shore Drive is,
Okay.
yes. But not the one at the cemetery,
no.
yeah. So I'll keep you apprised and today, and I talked to Vern last night, I was telling him, he said, well, and I put this question to Will Gartley about would this be Army Corps of Engineer rated? That they would do something like this, or FEMA or MEPers or.
Yeah, did we notice the damage beginning after a major rain event?
Probably, it didn't come to my attention until last week, but it has, it's been wet and been raining. And the other side of the road, opposite that, there's a ditch, it's not cleaned out really, but it's wet. And I think water comes down, there's a little gradual hill there. And there is a culvert somewhere here. But, so there's a lot of things they need to look at and try to figure out. I don't want to make any decisions and say, let's do this, but my ultimate decision would be, this would preclude any paving this year. So I would think I'd have to raise that road reconstruction money that's for paving. I don't have, because he kind of gave me a crazy estimate, which I was expecting like $300,000 to fix this. But that was before, and then it would involve crop if we did it a certain way, and anyway, so I'm not gonna make any wild guesses or say anything. That ruined my week. So,
Yeah.
next week I'm taking vacation, I wanted to tell you. That's my next plan, and that's the end of my report.
Well, it will be interesting to hear what William and Gartley and Dorsey, recommend.
Yeah, he's been, like you said, talking up the people there in the office and other people to see.
Yeah.
I know that we have it posted, like stay off of it on Facebook and the constant contact. Is there actually anything that's there to prevent people from
Yeah,
driving
it's
any further
barricade
on this side?
on this
Okay.
side and on that other side. It's just
Okay.
around that bend.
Perfect. I just want to make sure that we don't end up with that liability if somebody decides to be stupid if,
Well, I don't know if people go there to look at it, how people like to.
Right.
You can walk there, but I wouldn't even, because from day one, when we put the cones up there, I've had to move the cones back because it's cracked under the cones originally, so they.
Looks like the land actually moved.
Well, I shouldn't have a better picture, but there's trees on the bank that are like this.
Yeah.
They've been like that, but it's eroded so. So
Yeah,
there's
but
trees.
it follows the
Yeah.
curb line, and then all of a sudden where the break is, it goes off to the right on this picture.
Cause that's where some big tall trees are leaning over the beach.
Yeah.
And it's a lovely, like I said, 17-foot high beach.
Any other questions for Janet?
Oh, okay, thank you. I do have one more thing about this official ballot, which I keep receiving from Waldo County Budget Committee. Did we have anybody that wanted to be voted in as a candidate? I mean, I'll just send it back and say, not at this time. I can do that. Okay?
Great. No new business, no other business? Next up, approve warrant, number 4 for FY 24.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Appointments, Lauren Bruce to the Economic Sustainability Committee. Do I have a motion?
Someone,
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Excellent.
You ever gotta go home, Lauren?
Huh?
You ever get to go home?
Cole?
Yeah.
She had her first meeting today too.
Yeah.
Great, with that, I do not have any more comments tonight. Lauren,
I have no more comments.
Pete,
nothing here.
no?
Proud to announce that it's the wedding anniversary today.
Oh. And apologies to Donna, for taking so much of your people, taking so much of your time tonight.
I said she deserved a badge. I wish I had to give her.
No, it was on the clipboard. Melissa.
Congratulations, Donna and Phil.
Wow.
And school, first day, August 31st.
Wow.
No, we have to let
It's
them
not
know.
real.
Big things.
No.
Don't know.
Alternative fact.
But watch out for buses, watch out for all that fun stuff.
So the reval is going on. I don't know if anybody's come here, but that will be.
We had our discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he and I will talk next week and then he will come. We have to get the tax bills out unless you all decide, I mean, I've kind of said, let's get them out before the end of the month. But your meeting is again not until 30th. He'd like to get them out and going in the mail next week.
Well, is this a done deal? Cast in stone? But I got a lot of problems personally.
Yeah, well,
He did.
you can't, the board can't change anything.
No,
So
I'm just
when you
saying.
say cast in stone, I mean, he hasn't finished seeing people and they found errors, you know, on people's property and
Yeah.
made adjustments, so. But, you know, if you're just not happy, you know, there's not gonna be a solution for that.
And it's been 20 years since the last.
Well, 2005 was an
Right.
actual. And then Vern in 2009 did some, and Vern's done along the way some, adjustments. He tried to do them, but it's not the same thing as equalizing.
Yeah.
But if you don't agree with what they're doing, that is, there's a lot of that. Which I anticipate, but
I would say, I mean, I think we also need to do a better job of communicating what, or just kind of sort of summarizing what you know, when the last time the reval was, understanding what the changes were. I mean, I think the more information that we can push out about it, the better. And, you know, I know everyone is working on their understanding and trying, what the changes mean for them individually and how that fits into you know, personal budgets to make sure that this remains a place to be affordable. I think it's going to raise a lot of questions, particularly as we look to next budget season with the town, and the more information we can share with people, I think the better. So.
yeah. And so they're here again tomorrow, so if anybody wants to stop by, did you have an appointment?
I have an appointment with them tomorrow.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I remember.
It's
I
by
remember you
appointment,
saying-
right?
Correct.
I remember you saying something, Janet, about you know, this is general, that usually there's about a third that goes up, a third that goes down, and a third that stays about the same. I mean, information like that, where people can feel like, oh, not everybody's went massively up, or, you know, there is an attempt to do some kind of equalization, and how that is explained, I think would be worth hearing. There must be a way in which that can be explained and put out as an information item that people can read in the newspaper or in constant.
Well, I can get Rob to write something,
Yeah,
and
Can they give you those percentages?
excuse me,
Can they give you those percentages?
what?
Up, down?
The one out, who went down, just to stay.
Oh, they're not done. You don't know, I mean, how many went up and how many went down, you mean?
The percentages.
Not
When you
changing
said a
it
third, a
here.
third, a third.
Well, that was
Just
something
like-
that Vern said, that's just kind of a standard assessing reval.
Okay.
I have only heard
A
from
general
two people
comment.
that it went down, but they're not gonna call and say.
After those that ever
Right.
college, no. So-
Right.
But I think that would be a question that we can ask them on the 30th when we meet with them. What is
He
the
might know
averages
by
for it?
then, he can punch a button maybe and.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's a shame to have the presentation in time for questions happen after everything, the bills go out. I understand that we can't make individual changes. But we do hear a lot from community members with questions, and not having that, the ability to understand the big picture just makes it really difficult to help, you know, provide good information and be able to answer questions thoughtfully.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess this is still obvious, but if we're looking at spending money into the future for all these different projects that we've got going, and this is not going to help unless the town can understand this is a reasonable increase given all these factors. And what are the factors? Why did it go up, you know? If it's a shock to you, then it's a shock only if that adjustment makes no sense. If it makes sense, then it's just, it's still a shock, but it's
Yeah, well, that's
understandable.
why, I
and
mean,
that's
it's hard
what
for
we need.
everybody to come in
Yeah.
and sit down with them, but you can call them, you can email them, but that's really the answer. I mean, Tina had an issue. I said, well, let's talk with them, and she didn't. She found out there was some adjustment that they made, that was
Yeah.
something wrong with the back line.
And I think individuals coming in that's the perfect way, but there's some that won't, for whatever reason, they won't. And I think giving them some kind of, information about how this process worked, that could alleviate a lot of angst. And help maybe soften the blow somewhat.
The mill rate still stays at $11.
That was his guesstimate, I think. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I think he won't know until the end, and he looks at our budget and then we still have to add in the overlay and county tax, which went up $58,000 this year. And I'm thinking overlay will probably be at least 100,000, because I would anticipate a lot of abatements, people coming in, you know, whether they are approved or not, but that's where abatements get paid out of overlay. So it's, I was first at Vern yesterday.
So, I mean, does it feel possible to wait until the 31st to send out, the bill so that we have a
You can
chance
talk
or
to
that?
them tomorrow, you
we
can mention
can-
that to them, but I'm gonna see, I have to talk to them in the morning anyway.
Okay, and I'm happy to, talk through kind of what some of the general information and questions are that I think it would be helpful for people to hear, so.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, it just, because the deadline is September 30th for the payment, so we're just cutting, you know, people's time to get the bill. And there's some people probably who are here that might not have received this. I think we only heard from a couple people who, you know, that went to their mailing, their resident address, and they're here,
Yeah,
And
how
you're
are we
going-
reaching those people who, I mean, I know you've mentioned it at the information meeting, and I think some people were like, oh, I need to look into that, but I don't know if,
but only a couple did. I
Yeah.
expected.
If ever, but I don't know, for those that were, I mean, there's lots of people that weren't at that meeting that probably fall into that camp of if the tax bill went to their personal, to their,
I can't remember if
Account?
Tina sent, yeah, or whatever.
How many people were at that information meeting? Do we have a number?
I didn't see, but I think he set up 50 chairs. And then Pete said they were setting up more, Mikey said people had to set up more chairs.
And then there were people on the
bleachers-
bleachers
Yeah,
too.
that-
So maybe
That was a big turnout.
65, 70, something. Even. It's pretty good showing.
There was, what, he set out one row, so he set out 5 more. So, and there was, what, 12 in the bleachers with me and Pete?
Yes.
Yeah.
At least, yeah.
It's good.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
So moved. Or second, which
all
one?
right, all right. Well, everyone, aye. Thank you to those online that hung in with us for the duration.
Jeez, was like.
Right, no,